as we are going through new player options in Strixhaven, a curriculum of chaos. I have Kailey, Bray, and Riley Silverman here to break it all down and talk about what you're going to get to add to your games. Whether you are playing through the adventure of Strixhaven or just rolling up fun new characters wherever you are. So, we talked about the 5 backgrounds, which again are optional, but are a great way to tie your character creation into your plans for Strixhaven adventure. And one thing that they do, if you choose these, is that they automatically grant you a feat. There are 2 new feats in this book. One is Strixhaven Initiate, and one is Strixhaven Mascot. And one of our chat questions I saw earlier was, are there any new pets available? And oh, we're about to get into it. So Strixhaven Initiate and Strixhaven Mascot are first and fourth level kind of not there's a fourth level prereq for the second one, but I'm putting this in the most confusing way possible. You can pick initiative up anytime. Um, I'm never going to not say initiative. But they are going to grant you 2 cantrips and 1 first level spell that you can once per day, essentially. And then going to grant you that spell with access to the spell lists of certain classes. And this is where, Riley, you are alluded to guiding people to the set classes. So Lorehold is going to
Mhm.
grant you a spell of cleric or wizard. Prismari is going to grant you one of bard or sorcerer. Quandrix is going to let you grab one from druid or wizard. Silverquill is going to let you grab one from bard or cleric. Witherbloom is going to let you grab one from druid or wizard. And Riley, do you have thoughts or a favorite among the Strixhaven Initiate feats?
Yeah, I think what's really interesting about the initiative feat is that the way the game is structured, you start out as a first year student, and you haven't picked a college yet, but you would start with one of these feats to represent if you had that background to suggest that you've been studying your life planning on being in that school. So I think that it's really interesting to think about a character who might start the game with the idea of like, oh, I want to be in this school, but then you might change your mind over the course of like a few sessions, and now you're playing a person who like got into college is like, I don't want to be pre-med anymore. I want to dance. And so I think it could be really interesting to play this conflicted character who has an initiate feat for a school that you're not in. And it might give you a fun way of spreading the love around a little bit. But yeah, I also think that what's really interesting about this is, especially if you're playing a character who is in a college that might not necessarily be like immediately connected to the like, for example, if you're in Silverquill and you're not a bard or a cleric and you get one of these spells, it might be really fun to be able to have a spell that you wouldn't normally have access to with your particular character
Mhm.
class, but you can kind of put a little chocolate and peanut butter together and have some fun playing a little bit outside of the type, and gives you a lot more flexibility with your class choices. So I really like that element of it, and you get some fun little things with it too. I mean, imagine being a fighter that has vicious mockery. Like occasionally, you get to toss a little quick barb out there at somebody, and then go back to beating them up. It's fun.
It's
It's the ultimate
great.
bully, I guess. Now that I think about it out
Right.
loud.
Or
Oh
if
no.
if you're playing a pen is mightier than the sword kind of a character, and then you get some of that magic to beef yourself up a little bit, it's the role play possibilities are endless, and I love that.
Yeah.
And structurally, this spell is once per day without a spell slot or using any of your spell slots. So of course that's going to behave a little differently if you are or aren't a spellcasting class. But yes, it presents a lot of intriguing possibilities. Kaylee, did you have a favorite or
I it's for me, it's just my favorite is in the I just want to have a class and then pick the thing that is the opposite for that. Cuz I want to play a barbarian that weirdly has access to, I don't know, druidcraft or ray of frost, and suddenly you're just like, again, like if I'm building from the owlet, if I'm a snowy owl that has ray of frost, but also I'm a barbarian in, Quandrix, you can just like keep pulling and keep mixing and matching, and you're the kid who never picked their major, or they're like the perpetual student who just jumps from college to college to college because they love learning so much that they can't decide what their life path is.
The
There's just too many good
undecided.
toys. Yeah.
All right, so when you hit 4th level, of course, it's prerequisite 4th level and initiate feat to grab this one, but you can pick up Strixhaven Mascot, which is a custom find familiar implementation. You can cast it as a ritual, and your familiar can take the form of one of the 5 school mascots. That's the spirit statue mascot for Lorehold, an art elemental mascot for Prismari, a fractal mascot for Quandrix, an inkling mascot for Silverquill, or a pest mascot for Witherbloom. Riley, have you got a fave on this list?
I 100% love both the art elemental and the inkling. I mean, what a fun little thing to have. Like a ink, little like a little ink creature that follows you around and does stuff for you. I love this feat because I'm a sucker for familiar, and I find that I'm always sad when I'm playing a spellcasting class that doesn't have a familiar as an option. So
Yeah.
having it as an option, I have taken like ritual spellcaster as a feat just so I can add find familiar to my spell list, so I can have a pet. I want a magical pet that doesn't die. Give it to me, please. Like it's like I wish every spellcasting class was allowed to have a feat. So I think that I would have a familiar, and so this helps close that gap. So I
Mhm.
love it.
Getting real
Kailey,
Pokemon
thoughts on
Master
the
vibes from
yes,
these. Like, I want all of them.
especially considering they come into play. There's a game in Strixhaven called Mage Tower, where you essentially are trying to capture the other team's mascot. So a lot of fun possibilities there. And of course, there's some additional mechanics to this particular feat, which are that when you take the attack action on your turn, you can forego one attack to allow your mascot familiar to make an attack of its own with its reaction, which is a little bit different. And there is a little switcheroo ability that comes in to play with your mascots. If you are within 60 feet of each other, you can teleport as an action, swapping places with the familiar. Any favorite uses in advance of this one? I feel like sending an ink splotch in and then just swapping with it sounds just inherently delightful.
Oh, it's funny.
Yeah,
I
the
thought of it the other way around. I thought of it as like, "Oh, I'm in trouble. Let me hop out of here and let my mascot take the hit, and then I'll just resummon it later." Like, I thought that was a great move for like a rogue to do. Or oh wow, I like that you went the other way around with it. Like the strategy of setting it up.
Aha!
I love that. It's like, let me just nope out.
Probably
That's
Yeah.
yeah,
tactically a more relevant way to run this one, especially given that unless I'm misreading it, you'll still have the ability for of most familiars to communicate your touch spells and do
mhm.
that sort of lots of fun uses. Be like, I'm a nope out, but my fractal has you. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, let me just cast Spare the Dying with this pest mascot, which is now a possum or something in my brain. And it's just can you imagine a little like spooky possum running around keeping people from hitting 0, making death saves?
Oh my gosh, that's the
I
best.
love
I guess the fact that
that. All
teleporting
right.
is an action makes it not as OP as it could be. Because I feel like as a
Right.
DM, it might get really because I think the second level spell slot to use it more than once definitely limits it a little bit. But I think
Mhm.
when you get to higher level spellcasters who just are basically casting teleport left and right because they have this mascot, I think it's good to make it an action so they can't be like, "Here's my attack, poof away." Like you have a whole turn before you can get
Right,
out of
yeah.
there, which is good.
But speaking of getting on out of there, we also have 5 new spells introduced. They are related to each of the colleges, but they can be added to your spell list. They appear on certain relevant spell lists, which is a slightly larger list actually than the ones that you can draw from for the initiate feat. Um, the new spells, I'm just going to read out their names because we won't have time to go through everything in depth, but we've got Silvery Barbs, Borrowed Knowledge, Kinetic Jaunt, Vortex Warp, and Wither and Bloom. Riley, do you have a fave?
My favorite is Silvery Barbs for sure. I love this one. It's basically a combination of cutting words and bardic inspiration, but you do it in one spell. In a nutshell, because I know we're cutting short on time. Basically, you can roll it against an enemy to basically make them have to roll with disadvantage on whatever. If they succeed, they have to roll again, take the lower of the 2 rolls. But then you transfer their misfortune into fortune for your friend. So when you use this on an enemy, somebody else in your party now is granted advantage on a later roll. I believe it's on an attack or ability check or saving throw, basically before in the next minute. So it is such a like, so it doesn't have to be used right away, but it's such a clutch move, and I love it because I like these kind of spells that are really buff heavy, but this one goes 2 ways, and I love that it's such a cool, like, it feels very Mean Girls of, like, I'm gonna help my friend out by putting down this other person, and that's a lot of
It's
fun to it, so love it.
A beautifully evokes that, like, especially because you can only do it if they are succeeding at something where you're like, oh, it's just very mean.
Yeah.
So
so
but
good.
using good health with your DM's fortune, it's because it's delightful. Kaylee, do you have a fave from the spell list?
Oh yeah, it's got to be Wither and Bloom for kind of the same reason is that it's you can take from an enemy and give to an ally because you can just necrotic damage anybody, in it's a 10-foot radius sphere, I think, at any point in range. So you can take damage but then give hit dice to someone else in your party. So if someone is attacking a friend of yours, you can both do damage to them and then keep your ally up. It is very powerful and very cool. And I really want to use it. I
So
cannot wait to play this to play with this spell because that's got a lot of possibilities.
I'm intrigued by all of them. The borrowed knowledge is something that similar to what we've seen in terms of grabbing a proficiency out of your magical resources. Kinetic jaunt is a movement based one, which that's the get out of there that I was talking about, related
Mhm.
to the sort of movement side of the Prismari. And vortex warp is just fun space manipulation with terrifying power for our friends at Quandrix. But we are almost through with the options in this one chapter of new player options because
Oh
there
my
are of
gosh,
course
good
also
stuff.
8 new magic items for Strixhaven: A Curriculum of Chaos. There are 5 primers, one for each of the schools. Which, if you didn't take the background, if you didn't take the feat, you can still have a connection to your school through this primer. That's going to grant you a little bit of magic, some good stuff, and then a few extra items, the Strixhaven pennant, the merch Kaylee was alluding to earlier, a cuddly Strixhaven mascot, which actually helps defend against fear, which is the cutest thing I think I've ever heard of. And
So
Kaylee, the last one I think was going to be on your fave list. What's the
yeah,
bottle of
the
boundless
best
coffee?
the best Dungeons and Dragons item ever. Bottle of boundless coffee. Why are we putting our best scientists on this? Yeah, it's a metal bottle that carries delicious coffee. Uh and you can't put anything else into it and you can't pour it out into anything. You just have to drink it directly from the bottle. But if you roll a 1 when you try to use the item, it won't give you any coffee for like the rest of it for like an hour, I think, or the
Yeah.
rest of the day. It's an hour, which is just sad.
It's the
You get
most
punished,
painful botch
right?
consequences. Just no coffee. No coffee for
Yeah,
you.
no coffee.
Hmm?
I love it as
Guess
no
I'll be on my way.
mechanic too, like, you don't get anything from having the coffee, you just get the coffee, and I love
It
that.
just
I love that it's just a
that's
fun
enough,
I love
Riley.
magic
That's
items that don't
enough.
have mechanical benefits that are just, like, fun effects.
Just flavor. Love
Uh,
it.
And Riley, did you have thoughts on these magic items? Because those primers, they give you a little bit of magic access and they also give you some skill advantages, not in the terms of
Mm.
advantage, but things that help with certain skill checks. Did you have any thoughts or a fave before we wrap up?
Yeah, I like the primers essentially give you almost like a limited use of like the bless spell for only the features that are specific to your school. So obviously for like
Mm.
I'll say for example the silver quill one, if you use that, you get to add a D4 to your charisma checks for intimidation or persuasion, and then various similarities in all the other ones. And then you also get to add one-time use of a bard or cleric spell. So it's similar to having that initiative feat, which is nice because like there's some spells that you might want to have that you would only use once a day anyways. Having that once a day use of it frees up your spell slots to use for the things you would need to use more frequently. But I like the flavor of kids in the school handing off their primers to each other to like attune to help them out like with a big test, like, hey, give me your Lorehold primer, I have a final today. Or like I wonder if the silver quill primer is like banned during like the week leading up to like a winter formal because everyone's using it to try to ask people out, and they're like, no, stop using primers to give yourself courage. Like you have to just do it, ask the person out, and be yourself. So I wonder if that's a thing. So I love the primers as a concept. It feels very school flavor oriented.
The handbook for your school. And I do love that once again, the variety of ways to tie into the college, I think lends itself to a lot of flexibility. As much as I liked the idea of the specific subclasses, there are now just a ton of options as to how the character you created might draw on or get involved with the college that you're going to eventually choose, or the one that you change your mind and choose too. I love that idea. In Strixhaven, a curriculum of chaos. Thank you both so much for joining me today. This was so much fun. For anyone who might not have and would like to, you can pre-order Strixhaven: A Curriculum of Chaos, which comes out on Tuesday, December 7th. I don't know dates anymore. And you can get some amazing pre-order perks, including the Scholar's Dice, which are very, very beautiful. And I hope that you will check it out. Where can people find you, Kailey?
You can find me on Twitter at Hoppa Barbarian. I'm the executive producer of Tabletop at Pixel Circus, where we are premiering the second season of our puppet show, GM'd by Gina DeVivo, this Saturday at 7 p.m. Pacific time. So check it out.
And Riley?
Hey, you can find me on Twitter at Riley J. Silverman, on Instagram at Riley Silverman, and I'm doing TCRPG stuff all over the place. And right now, I'm just looking forward to the happy holidays. So I will say all that.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time, and we will see you next time on D&D Beyond.
It's D&D.